Are you ready to embark on a journey of success? To discover your true potential in the untold stories of careers in life sciences? Welcome to Pathfinder by the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. With your host, Tommy Soares, discover the untold stories of industry scientists and unveil the secrets to excelling in your career. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tommy Soares. I'm the Director of Scientific Strategy and Relations for the Purdue Institute of Inflammation, Immunology and Infectious Disease. And today on Pathfinder, I have the honor and pleasure of welcoming Dr. Lou Stancato, who is the Vice President of Enabling Technologies and leader of the Pediatric Rare Disease Platform at the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, the IBRI in Indianapolis, and is a recognized expert in adult and pediatric cancer translational research. At the intersection of bench and the bedside, translational research is essential to turning fundamental biological understanding of molecules and disease into testable clinical hypotheses. Lou's career began with a Bachelor of Science in Cellular and Molecular Biology, followed by a PhD in Pharmacology from the University of Michigan. Lou continued his training as an Intramural Research Training Fellow at the FDA Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research at the National Institutes of Health, twice receiving the NIH Fellows Award for Research Excellence. Lou joined Eli Lilly and Company in 1997 and developed a significant pharmaceutical drug hunting experience, spanning the continuum of drug discovery and development, contributing to numerous clinical programs, especially for children suffering from cancer. In 2023, Lou retired from Lilly after nearly 26 years of service and joined the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute, where his team is developing novel antibody therapeutics for metastatic pediatric sarcoma and novel patient-derived models of human and canine osteosarcoma. Lou is passionate about helping children with cancer and rare genetic diseases, and this second phase of his career is dedicating to making their lives better. Welcome to the program, Lou. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today.
My pleasure, Tommy. Thank you.
I am so excited to talk to you for so many reasons. Obviously, with a career like yours, I am so interested to hear what the journey has been so far, how you got started, and then more as you're starting this next phase in your career in rare pediatric cancers and diseases. I really am interested in hearing that trajectory and how things are going there. So welcome. Take us as far back as you can, as you want. What was the inspiration to get into science? What were you like as a child?
So I've always been curious, inquisitive, wondering how things work in the world. And honestly, I think the spark ignited when I was in high school. I was at a small Catholic high school in the Metro Detroit area. It's called Harper Woods Notre Dame, and we had a class at the local hospital. And in this class, we were able to meet with physicians and nurses across the continuum of medicine. And one day, I had the privilege, I can't remember his name, of listening to an oncologist. And all I knew about oncology was that it's cancer, and this is back in the mid-'80s. And cancer was the dreaded word. When you hear the word cancer, you think people are going to die. And I remember asking this oncologist after his presentation, I said, so how do you do it? How do you not get so depressed day in and day out, knowing that most of your patients are going to die? And he looked at me and he said, I don't focus on the ones who die. I focus on the ones I save. And that has stuck with me to this very day. He knew enough to know that cancer was going to do what it can do. or what it will do. He could only do so much. And so he measured his victories one person at a time. And again, like I said, that has stayed with me to this very day. And that set me down a course where I then went into undergraduate research at the University of Michigan. And about my junior year, I took a chance to go work in a pharmacology lab. They needed a lab manager. I was just a kid looking for a job in biomedical research. And this lab, Dr. Raymond Council, who was the chair of the Department of Pharmacology, took a chance at me, let me come into the lab and ultimately take over the lab. And from there, I actually entered the pharmacology program. I always thought I'd go to medical school, but I would have made a terrible doctor. I need my sleep. I don't do well and tired. And the last thing I would want is somebody's life in my hands when I haven't slept in 36 hours. So I figured maybe that's not the path for me. So I went the research route, and I haven't looked back, and I haven't regretted a single moment.
Wow, what an incredible opportunity, though, to be given the managerial role at such a young age.
Yeah, I lucked out. I had some great mentors. It didn't happen immediately. I had to build towards it, work towards it. I made a lot of mistakes, but I worked in a lab where mistakes were accepted as long as you didn't make them again. So they understood the importance and the value of experience and experiences. And it was an in vivo rat pharmacology laboratory. So I was doing live phase research with radioiodinated phospholipid ethers, I think it was, and looking at them as tracer agents. And it was just a fantastic experience. And it sparked a love for basic biomedical research that hasn't gone away. In fact, it's as strong as ever.
Incredible.
So from there, I went into graduate school. I did my rotations, but I knew who I wanted to work with. He was a wonderful physician scientist named Bill Pratt, who just passed away this past year. It feels like there's a hole in my soul with his passing, because he was as influential in my life as really anybody, including my family. And he unlocked the potential in me to ask the tough questions and pursue them with vigor and with determination. And it was just a wonderful 4.5-year graduate experience. He was hard on us. He was tough. He wasn't always the nicest person. And if I had to do it again, I would jump back into his lab in a heartbeat. And that ultimately set me down my final path towards where my postdoc was, which was at the National Cancer Institute and the Food and Drug Administration. It was sort of a joint hybrid appointment, working with a scientist named Andy Lerner, who I had met at the University of Michigan as he gave a talk. And after his talk, I approached him. I said, "You're doing some great stuff. Do you have any postdoc opportunities?" And that was really my first exposure to having to own my own career. And so I'd like, whoever is listening to this, I want people to understand that you need to own your own career. You may not understand the breaks that are opening before you, but don't hesitate. Reach out and grab what you think will be best for your career. In this case, I knew I wanted to work with Andy. And so he said, "Well, actually, we just might." And we ended up collaborating for about 6-8 months. We put together a paper, and then I jumped over to the FDA/NCI for about 1.5 years. Again, a great experience that exposed me to so many different aspects of biomedical research in immunology and cancer. And this was before immunology became a really hot topic, if you will, in cancer therapy. And in Andy's lab, I was very well trained. We had wonderful colleagues, some of whom remain some of my best friends to this day. And when it was time to move on, and that happened when Andy decided to go to the Cleveland Clinic and accept a faculty position, and he offered me a position with him. And in the end, my wife and I did not want to do that. So I looked for a job, and it was during a time when it was really the golden age of jobs in the biomedical research industry. I mean, there were jobs aplenty. And I just happened to hook up with Eli Lilly. I really didn't even know Lilly. I had no idea. And 26 years later, it was one of the more satisfying careers I could have ever imagined. I was very fortunate, very privileged.
Incredible. What an awesome story. And you know what struck me, especially as you got started with the story, is number one, two talks where you went up to the speaker afterwards and you asked them questions.
Right.
I think when you said, you got to take a hold of your career, you got to make it your own. Well, it's almost like you're taking the opportunity to put yourself out there and ask what might be a question that who knows if people will find it interesting or not, but at least it was your curiosity that took you down that path, and it opened up doors, it opened up opportunities. And so for me, the first lesson that I'm learning from you is like, go to talks and ask lots of questions.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
That's what science is all about, questioning and being questioned. And I think we lose sight of that. We often kind of shrink, many of us shrink back from the big name, or we become afraid that we might sound frankly stupid or ignorant.
Yeah.
But we're scientists. Curiosity is part of our DNA. There is a curiosity gene, and we need to cultivate that gene and explore it to its fullest extent.
And we're not born knowing everything. So asking questions, even though they might seem stupid, it's all relevant to whoever thinks they're stupid or whatever. The only question that is stupid is the one that is not asked.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely, Tommy.
I love that. And I really like your point about us being curious about nature, curious about how the body works, how science is put together, what are the rules, what are the laws, and being able to maybe even see if we could break some of those laws and put things to the test. I really like that energy. And the other thing I think, I got especially from Bill Pratt story was that he was tough, and that I think we get tired of people asking us questions.
He was very tough. And can I just give one little quick
please
about him?
This is your time, Lou, not mine.
So during my graduate training, we would always meet in front of our lab bench and go over our results with him, often as soon as they came out. And we all understood the wonderment behind the fact that what we're looking at that moment, we are probably the only people in the world looking at what we're looking at, which was, when you step back and think about it, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. But it was always funny because he rarely gave credit to the graduate students during the training. He was always forcing you to go for more. And it was after I defended my thesis and I was doing a short postdoc in his lab prior to then joining Andy's lab at the NCI. I ran sort of a flyer experiment. I had some extra samples. I had some space on a gel. I ran this experiment, and it came out with some really fantastic results. It wasn't terribly well controlled, but we got the gist. We knew enough about what we were working on. So I said, Bill, come take a look at this. And I went to great pains, because if you ever showed him an experiment without controls, he would just eviscerate you, to the core. Yes. And I said, look, I didn't run all the controls for all the reasons I just articulated. I said, but look what happened here. He's like, that's incredible. It's amazing. He pulled somebody from the lab. He's like, Louis had this great idea, and I can only now say that this idea was his because he's finally defended his thesis. I just thought, I don't know why that has stuck with me, but it's like once you cross that threshold, you became a member of the club, in a sense. I'm sure some people may not like that, but for me, that worked very well. And it just showed me that you keep working, you're doing a good job. Yes, it's good to get positive affirmation from others, but if you know you're doing a good job, stay on that path. And one day, you know, the rewards, the glory will come to you. And for me, that was like winning the Nobel Prize. Bill Pratt said I had a great idea.
I love it. I love it.
And that sort of carried me along as I move along. It's you really have to in science have to have this internal. You certainly have to have a drive, but you have to have almost like an internal reward program that allows you to revel in the small victories that occur on a daily or maybe weekly basis, because you know we're destined to fail more than we are to succeed. But it's those successes that need to be celebrated. And if you wait for somebody to tell you at every step that you're doing a great job, you might be waiting an awful long time. So you have to calibrate with your own values and your own success criteria every step of the way, or else you can get lost and you can become quite despondent.
And I see that many times with, you know, students that are doing experiments over and over again, and they don't come up with the results. It's just not working. They're trying to express a protein or whatever it might be. And it's just, you know, they keep getting frustrated that they can't change or they can't get the result. How do we coach them to become their best cheerleaders, Lou? Because it's as you said, like it's almost human nature to wait for somebody to validate, to find significance, and you know, give you a boost and say, wow, what a wonderful job you did. But you kind of have to keep on being your own cheerleader.
You do, and you build and grow with it. Like I didn't have, and it really comes down to conviction, conviction of purpose, conviction in one's abilities, and understanding that it's a gradual process and that you're there for a reason. And it's okay to keep going back in your own mind and why am I here? Questioning, why am I here? What brought me here? Oh, okay, I know this. I know the system better than anyone else. It's telling me something right now, and I just need to figure out what it's telling me. And once you figure it out, you take it to its logical conclusion. And in graduate school in particular, but even as you move along, you know, these revelations that are made through the course of experiments and projects, sometimes they're gradual, sometimes they're non-existent. Other times they're that profound leap that just hits you right out of the blue. Yeah. You don't know when or where those are going to happen. So you have to just be comfortable with who you are, what you're doing, and not deviate from that. And then it takes time. And I know a lot of like the younger scientists or scientists to be who come into graduate school, maybe they're not trained to be that way. Maybe it's been easy every step of the way. Well, I don't care how easy it's been for anybody. Science Mother Nature will always throw the curveball.
Yeah.
And how do we react? How do we handle it? And that's it's part of the challenge. But once you learn to master that uncertainty and you build that internal conviction of purpose, life becomes so much more rich and exciting.
Totally. I wanted to ask you, did you get some of this from that managerial role in between your undergrad and starting grad school? And meaning like, okay, so you're handling inventory and managing the lab, but you must have been like the young one there telling telling people what to do and like, you know, postdocs and doctorates and master students, and you're telling them, no, sorry, we need to buy another gel rig or whatever you were doing, right?
Absolutely. And it was my first experience with mentors without even knowing they were mentors. So, and building a network. And again, for the listeners who are out there, building your network or beginning to build one's network as early as possible is crucial. It sets you up for success in ways you cannot envision when you first meet a person. You just never know when paths will cross again. But in the case of what you were talking about in that lab environment, I had to build relationships and network because graduate students, and I was one of them, are very much of the mindset of, get out of my way. I have something that's important to do, and it's more important than anything you're telling me or you want me to do. And so you have to build these relationships. And it was it was building those relationships and making some significant mistakes along the way, and being shown the grace and the courtesy and the ability to overcome those mistakes to then rise to a higher level. And that all happened in that 2-year period when I was in Raymond's lab.
What an opportunity.
It really was. As I look back, it was the first time in my career, in my life, where I was able to, quote unquote, be in charge of something.
Yeah.
I liked it. It felt good. And I also realized the awesome responsibility that comes with it. And again, I wanted to experience more of that as my career progressed. And that's why ultimately my career sort of navigated towards scientific leadership. I just really enjoyed being able to run things.
Yeah. And with a team, right? To work
absolutely with a team.
And
that was the other thing, is it was the first exposure as well to science was becoming more and more of a team environment, especially, and I'm sure we'll get to this later, when you go into the pharmaceutical business, it is 100% a team-based endeavor. 100%. If you cannot work within a team, do not go into pharmaceutical research and development, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and not that I know from personal experience, but from these conversations that I've had from the people that I know in my network, everybody says the same thing. You have to learn how to work with people and how to be a significant impact in a team environment where you can help other people, and obviously the dynamics within there. What do you say to new incoming investigators, people that are fresh out of their PhD or fresh out of school, and they're getting into the industry, just to orient them as to, what's it going to be like and how many people you're going to be working with?
It depends on where one enters into pharma, because it's astounding the number of moving but interrelated parts that go into discovering and developing a drug. So the first thing you have to do is go in, and first off, you have to be yourself. Don't try to conform to what you think is the way people do things, because there are too many people who do too many things in too many different ways. So be yourself, because you're going to be outed immediately if you try to posture, if you try to do something or be something that you're not. And always take into account the opinions and advice of each and every person you come across. And let me give you a quick little story about that, because I think it's particularly important or germane to this question. When I started with Lilly, it was at a small biotech site down in Durham, North Carolina, that had been bought out by Lilly a couple of years before. It was called Sphinx Pharmaceuticals, subsequently became Lilly RTP Labs. And I was brought in to be a screen leader, which means I was hired to develop and oversee the implementation of high throughput screens. And this was back in the day when the genomics revolution was just taking hold, and every protein under the sun was targetable, and we were running screens of hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands, if not millions of compounds. And my second day, I sat down with an associate scientist, meaning non-PhD level. His name was John Rice. I'll never forget this. John sat me down and said, we can do things one of two ways. You're the leader, you got the PhD, so I can listen to you and I can do what you tell me to do, and I'm not going to offer you any advice because you're in charge, and that's that. Or we can partner. You can listen to me because I have a lot more experience than you. There might be some bumps and bruises along the way, but we will get to where we want to go, in my opinion, faster and better if we work together and you listen to me. Well, that was an easy answer. I took door number 2 and learned to partner with John immediately. And that man taught me so much. And from that moment, I realized it doesn't matter if you have a PhD, a master's, bachelor's, or even if you don't have a degree. People are people, brains are brains, and ideas are ideas. And there are too many people out there, and we've all encountered them, who discount others, because they don't have the same credentials, or they haven't walked the path that such and such, Mr. Big or Mrs. Big Shot has walked.
Yeah.
You need to throw that out the door. You need to put your ego aside and realize that every person you interact with has the potential to come up with an idea, a concept, a thought that can help you. And really, you should be self-serving from the standpoint of, I'm going to take all these ideas. I'm going to learn from them, independent of who or what you are. And that interaction with John totally changed how I viewed what my job would be. And it was day 2. And I honestly think that propelled my career to a higher trajectory, a higher plane, a steeper trajectory, if you will. Much better and much more so than if I had just come in and, I'm the PhD. I know exactly what I'm doing. Listen to me. I knew nothing. I literally knew nothing. I knew how to think. That's all the PhD training gave me, was how to think, how to organize, how to move things forward. And the rest, well, John helped me figure out how to best develop and build the rest.
But gutsy move from his part to say that to a senior member of the team and say, hey, listen, you better listen to me too.
Well, and it was interesting because, see, I didn't join Lilly at the mothership in Indianapolis. So I was at a small site that was a biotech site that had this biotech spirit. And it's very different, biotech from large pharma.
Yes.
And that's one case in point, is that in a biotech, it's smaller. So you have fewer people doing more things versus the mothership where you have more people doing fewer things. And so that kind of, those guts, that ability to speak out was part of their DNA. And myself and my colleagues, who eventually then matriculated up to the mothership in whenever it was, 2003, 2004, when they shut our site down, we brought that with us and brought a new way of thinking and approaching science. Because pharma can be very stodgy, it can be very conservative, it can be very rigid. And there's good reason for that, because it does work. Yeah. But there's room for improvement always. Sure. And I learned that down there.
What an incredible thing. If you don't have a John in your team, but you realize that that person really knows maybe more about a subject area or technique or whatever it might be, how do you get them to come out of the shell and start telling you what to do? Because I see those opportunities all the time in the university. You see people, right, like students and whatever, and investigators, and then you realize, oh, this person really has a knack for this particular technique.
Yeah.
We could use a workshop. We could use a lesson on how to do this, right?
Find common ground. Find something that motivates them, that also motivates you, helps you, and approach them. And just something as simple as, I heard what you said the other day. That was really interesting. Let's talk about it. And people would be amazed where it goes. Even some of the crustiest, maybe least approachable people, if you kill them with a little kindness and just show them interest, and then take the opportunity to get to know them beyond just on their professional level. Find something else about them. Find out what makes them happy, what they do. I have no problems talking to my team and throughout my entire career about people, about what their life is like, what are the trials and tribulations of their life and how it impacts their work, et cetera, because it really does, I think, build a stronger relationship, in my opinion. When you get to know the person and you understand and you can show this empathy towards their life, and then suddenly, you just have people who are willing to do anything for you. Yeah. And it goes to a saying from one of my former supervisors, a guy named Carrie Blanchard, really interesting character. But Carrie, one of his number one pieces of advice to all of us was, learn how to influence without authority. Learn how to work with others. Show them your vision and see if they'll come along, because they want to. It's this whole coalition of the willing. Build those who want to work with you. Build a group of those who want to work with you, not because you're in charge, you're the boss. Forget all that. You can always tell people what to do, and you'll get what you need, but you won't get much more than that. But if you have people who work with you because they want to work with you, because you share common ground, and maybe they're just looking for a vision and they don't know what that vision is, and you come along with it, boom.
Yeah.
It just takes off from there. And my entire career has been predicated on building coalitions, building teams, because we all want to work together. And we exclude, to the extent we could, those who didn't kind of fit in with our approach, our mindset, the gunners, the glory hounds, the people who we all know who they are.
Yes.
Like you need them, you tolerate them because they may give you something you need, but you aren't going to go, hey, let's go have lunch now. You're going to be like, ah, see you later.
Right. No, I think there's so much to say about that in that. And you said, we want to work together. There is this need for belonging and being part of something greater than ourselves, and that we're contributing, we're working at it together. I think it's almost a prerequisite for advancing humanity, is that we really...
Scientists are still human beings.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. We can get in our own way. Our egos get in our own ways too.
Completely.
And so many times we do shut down other people's opinions or other people's, ways, techniques, just because we have different ways of doing it. But this world is constantly changing. And I really like your guidance in saying that, everybody comes from a different walk of life and has some perspective that you don't have. And so there's a lot potentially to be learned from that person, whether it is in life, in career, in science, or whatever it might be. Everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has a lesson to teach, per se.
Yes, and you just made me think of something kind of interesting. We called it charm school at Lilly. When, as you move up the leadership ranks, you go to these classes, these courses. Like I said, we called it charm school. And at first it was sort of tongue in cheek, but I learned the value of these classes, and in particular, how to be a leader, how to work with people. And there was one in particular that really opened my eyes to the different styles that people have and how they work. And when I understood that, and when we all understood that, it definitely made us all more effective. Because see, I'm very much I'm a red personality. Let's go, let's get it done. Tell me what I need to know, and that's it. Versus other people who can't operate that way. They just can't. They're not designed. They're not built. They need a little more information. They need a little more time to think it through. And when I started in my career, I struggled with those people, and I would come across probably as kind of a jerk. And then I stepped back as I learned about, well, they're just wired like this. That doesn't mean they're lazy. That doesn't mean they're not committed. They just do it differently. It sounds obvious, but it really wasn't, because I just, you come out of graduate school where your PI sets the tone, but you have to drive yourself to an end. If you don't make it, you don't make it, and it's probably your fault, by and large. Sometimes you get bad mentors, but we'll put that aside. And so you take this mentality of, I'm in charge of everything, I own this, I own that, and then suddenly you realize, but I don't own this person, and I'm not in charge of that person, and I need to understand what motivates them and how they work. And those charm school classes actually were really useful. They were beneficial because they taught me a lot about myself. Some things I didn't like.
Yeah.
Like my impatience, how others would view me when Lou got stressed. When Lou got stressed, Lou was not pleasant.
Yeah.
and we can laugh it off, but it wasn't good at the time.
Yeah.
And when I was corrected, I stepped back and I realized, oh, you just did me a favor by telling me this.
Yeah.
And then you begin to take into account other people's approaches and what they hear, because their reality, their reality is theirs, mine is mine. We can say there's an ultimate reality, but words can be taken in many different ways, tones and the way we deliver them. And you got to keep that in mind. And I had some hard lessons, but I think I've learned them. I hope I have.
Yeah, and so what are some of the tips? Because I lack patience too. I think I work in the same circle as you do, where I'm a go 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 person, and if people are not, keeping up, I'm like, well, what happened? Where is everybody? And why are they being so lazy and not,
Exactly.
But how do you self-correct? And now I'm sure you've had a lot of experience and probably much feedback.
Yes.
How do you self-correct when you feel like you're getting stressed out? How do you recognize those feelings? How do you recognize those thoughts? And how do you self-correct, pivot from that?
Be honest with yourself and then be honest with those around you. Sometimes it's okay to say, you know what? I am freaking out right now because of the following. Bear with me. I'm sorry. And feel free to call me out if you don't like what I'm saying. And because I've had so many people show me grace along the way
Mhm.
in times where, you should have known better, but all right, don't do it again. And it's that whole concept of, well, I try to pay it forward now and say, try to show grace to others who might be going through a rough patch or to yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. Nothing is not correctable by and large. I mean, there are some, nuclear options that you can take towards other people that maybe you can't come back from. But barring those, pretty much everything can be corrected, especially if you own it. Own your mistakes. Do not look for scapegoats. Do not look for outs. Sometimes you just screw up.
Mm.
And it's okay to say, I just screwed up. I remember sitting in front of a clinical team in the early 2000s, and I was showing some data about a compound that we discovered against a protein kinase. It was an inhibitor of a certain protein kinase, doesn't matter what. And I said, look at the data. This thing out of the box is super potent, super specific, super active. Like, oh, this is great. Okay, what can we do with it? Well, 1 week later, I'm going through the data again. Something was like, eh. And I made a decimal point error. It might have even been a 2 decimal point error. And this thing was not nearly as potent and active as I thought.
Oh, boy.
You know what? I was sifting through tens of thousands of data points. I had multiple projects ongoing. But you know what? At the end of the day, I screwed up. I went to that team and I said, oh, I hate to tell you this, but I screwed up. We don't have what we thought we had. It's a start, but it's nowhere near as far along as we thought. And that was probably one of the hardest things I ever did. I agonized over it. I didn't sleep. The whole shot of stress and stress-related behaviors. And they just looked at me and they said, it's all right. Mistakes happen. This isn't the only tool we have in the bag.
Right.
Don't do it again, but we get it. Thank you for telling us. Now we won't do this, 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 and this. Right. They showed me grace. They acknowledged my mistake. They said, don't do it again, but they allowed me to come to grips with it. And in doing so, made me realize that it's always better to be upfront, transparent, and honest. Sounds simple, right?
Yeah, no, but also your conviction to go back and re-explore the data, that and to be so quick in admitting the mistake is also so important because we tend to let those things fester and you
Yes.
wait too long and then things have happened and decisions have been made because of what you presented. And I've been in that situation where a result that we kind of overlooked 2 years later came to bite us. 2 years, Lou.
Yeah.
And I remember
That's
being
hard.
there and it's just so like that's heart-wrenching. That's when you really know,
Yeah.
oh, this person might have not been as honest as they should have been.
Yeah, don't, for the sports enthusiasts out there, don't lose the same game twice. Okay, you lost the first game. It was terrible. Everything you screwed up, you screwed up. Own it,
Yeah.
admit it, and move on. Don't do it again. Don't lose that next game because you lost the previous game. It's the same concept here.
Totally.
It's all up here. You know, how you handle things and then how you display the behaviors that have shown you've grown and learned. That's the thing. And that maybe that's another point is I don't care who you are, what you are, and where you are in your career. You can always grow and you can always learn. I try to find something every day. One thing, what did I learn today? You know, no matter how small and trivial it may be, did I learn something today that I didn't know yesterday? And just build from that.
Well, I thank you for having this conversation with me because I'm learning a lot as we're talking, and
Well, good, thank you.
it's just wonderful. I want to go back just so that we can talk a little bit more about your current position at the IBRI.
Mm-hmm.
You told us about, what got you going towards cancer, but why pediatric cancers? Why is that? Why rare diseases too? What motivates you around there?
I'm glad you asked me that because that is my passion. It has been so for the past 15 years. My team at Lilly was a translational science team, meaning we took observations from the bench and tried to translate them into clinical realities. What kind of trial could we run? What's the disease state, et cetera? And I remember one of the leaders from one of our clinical development teams for a drug that never made it. Most drugs never make it. And this was a drug they were evaluating for melanoma. And the question was posed to my lab, because we were a robotically enabled lab. We could do a lot of things with a lot of cell lines very quickly. And they said, look, we need some data for regulatory authorities on some pediatric cell lines just to say we've done it. I'm like, okay, whatever. It was a simple task, 20 cell lines, 21 cell lines. We validated them, characterized, validated, ran a variety of tests. And we were ready to test this guy's molecule. And I started asking the question, well, if we're going to test this molecule, we've got all this capacity to do so much more. Let's test the rest of our portfolio. So I grabbed every molecule I could in Lilly's clinical portfolio.
Oh, wow.
And tested the clinical oncology portfolio and tested them in these pediatric cell lines. And something popped out that was astounding, like absolutely astounding. One of the most potent molecules I had ever seen in any cell-based assay. And somehow I had a connection with a scientist named Malcolm Smith at the National Cancer Institute. And I contacted Malcolm and I said, hey, we've got this molecule that did the following. And he immediately contacted me. This is all by email. He's like, that is amazing. Let's look at it further. From that point, I can't tell you how many clinical trials were launched, not only for that molecule, but for other molecules in the Lilly portfolio. And it stimulated something. Something awoke in me. Like, I was astounded at the potential to help those who I hadn't even thought of. We all know about kids with cancer. Yeah. We all know the pictures of the bald child on the St. Jude advertisements, or we've seen these children in our communities. We see them, but we don't, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And as a society, we've kind of left them behind. Nobody wants a kid to die, but there's no money in saving them. And I don't know how else to say it. So they've been left behind. Mm-hmm. When I saw the value of the molecules in our portfolio and their potential to help kids with cancer, that became my mission. My whole life, I've always been interested in sort of the off the beaten path kind of gigs, if you will. And this was as off the beaten path as you could get. I knew going down this road would slow my career up. But the science was just amazing and it was wide open. And at that time at Lilly, I had from leadership, literally from the top down, alignment that we're going to follow the science. And that science is telling us we need to investigate these molecules in the pediatric setting. And I started reading about pediatric cancer. I started realizing that these kids, we've helped them. We bombard them. We saved many of them, but at a tremendous cost. And the ones we don't save die a very horrible death. And a mentor, friend, supervisor, to this day, one of my best friends, Jeremy Graff, he was our leader. And he asked the question, do you want to spend the next 20 years of your life working on something that's going to give somebody 3 months extension of life? Or do you want to do something profound? Do you want to really shake up the mix and create something wholly new? And that has stuck with me. And again, to the listeners out there, so many times in your career, you're going to find these Jeremys and Johns and et cetera, and their words are going to stay with you and they're going to guide you. And Jeremy's words guided me towards pediatric oncology because I thought, well, we have the potential to give a child years, if not a life. And that was it. I was done from that point, and the pediatric oncology community external to the pharmaceutical business. So the researchers at Memorial Sloan Kettering, at Riley, at children's hospitals across the country and really across the world were begging for champions inside pharma to bring their molecules up and out into the clinic. And we were able to do that. And they are the best people in the world. And I wanted to work with the best people. And by that, I mean the best human being people. Yeah. Great scientists, it goes without saying, but great people. And that was it for me. I was done at that point. Yeah. You could not pull me out of pediatric oncology if you wanted to.
It's very rare that I have met somebody working in the pediatrics area who has not been, like, as you said, an incredible human being. So many people that have like floored me, including you, Lou. I mean, what an ambition, and to do this pivot also in going from Lilly after 26 years of an incredible career, and then starting here in the IBRI and continuing to work on that passion, continuing to foster that that fire in you, right?
Well, thank you. And it was, the thing is, what we had, my team, was great. It was great until the one day it wasn't. Yeah. And by that, I mean, it was all taken away from us, literally in the blink of an eye, with a change of leadership. Mm. And that leadership did not see a path forward for pediatric oncology. Mm-hmm. And I knew at that moment, I can't do this. Now, I had reached a point in my career where I was fortunate enough to be able to, I could see my retirement date and pension and all that. So I had things behind me that would support me moving forward where I could take a chance. And I took one chance by leaving oncology and going into pediatric clinical development to learn another part of the business, which was great, but it was also very boring. Yeah. And again, I had I had a very good job. It was very, I hate to say it, and it was easy. It was simple, and it was boring. So I could only do that for about 3 years. And then I needed to get back into this game. And that's when our leadership, who was our CEO, Alan Palkowitz, was a mentor of mine at Lilly. He had retired from Lilly a few years ago. And he talked to me about, what if you joined us and you continued your mission here and you have a blank slate, an open canvas to paint what you think we should do. And that's why I came here, because, I mean, who could pass that up at this stage of their career? Yeah. So I was given the opportunity to pick up on research that I had to leave behind many years ago. Yeah. It's all in the public domain, and yet nobody's done anything with it. And it's for kids with metastatic cancer. So kids who get sarcomas, these are terrible, terrible tumors of basically connective tissue in muscle. Yeah. And many of them travel to the lung, and that's what really kills the majority of our pediatric patients. We think we have something that will help with one step of that progression to the lung. We don't think we have a cure. We got to stop talking about the cure for cancer, because there's so many cancers and so many subtypes therein that there's no one cure. We think we have step one of being able to help kids, and that's my mission here. And it's too compelling of an opportunity to pass up. I had to take it, and I'm glad I did, because now I get to hopefully ride the second phase of my career doing nothing but trying to get a drug or drugs to the clinic for children. I don't have to worry about the posturing associated with getting my next promotion in big pharma. I don't have to worry about the glory and the accolades that so many people are concerned with. And I was for a time there too, because you have to manage your career. Let's face it. I had a family, I had children, et cetera. I mean, you need the trappings of your physician to help you with that, certainly.
Yeah.
But then you reach a point where that doesn't matter. Your needs are met. And then you're thinking, what are you going to do next? Where am I going to go?
Yeah.
And for me, it was clear. I'm coming here to pursue what I think I was meant and built and trained over 26, 28, 30 years, whatever, to do. So I couldn't be more fortunate, couldn't be any happier about being here. And it's just fantastic.
I admire also Alan Palkowitz for his leadership and his patience in waiting for you to be able to free up and come jump over to the IBRI.
He was incredibly patient. And you remember I was talking before about like this biotech mentality when I was down at the site in North Carolina. He always fostered that in me when I was at Lilly. And he fosters it to this day. And he's, I don't know, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but I think he wants the IBRI we do not want it to be a little pharma, nothing against pharma. He wants us to find our own paths in our own unique way. He's the type of leader who trusts his people. If you can trust your people, good, do so and get out of their way. And that's what Alan does. I mean, he gives us guidance. He gives us he gives us the frame.
Sure.
And kind of gives us a little sketch of what he's thinking, but the rest is up to us. And who could ask for anything better? What could be better than that at this stage of my career? There's nothing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dr. Lou Stancato, thank you so much for providing such wealth and depth into your career and lessons that you've learned so far. It's been a wonderful Pathfinder lesson for me and things that I have learned that I'm going to take with me as well. Thank you so much for being part of our program and taking time to speak to us today.
It was my privilege. I really enjoyed it, Tommy. Thank you very much. And you're welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Lou Stancato, the Vice President of Enabling Technologies and leader of the Pediatric Rare Disease Platform at the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute. Thank you, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us once again, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.